Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we're sticking with some John Carpenter horror, but this time behind the wheel of a car. And to join me, my very good friend Diana. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. And before we jump into things, I always like to shamelessly plug around here. So, Diana, throw some shameless plugs around.
Oh boy, well, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Diana Gebbia. If you like Bravo, we are talking all about the Scandival this week. And then I also write for Sif Pop, Scribe Magazine, The LA Girl, and I'm the host of the Believe in Bravo Besties podcast. So,
Boom. There it is. I wanted to tell you this. So I just finished History of the World Part 2,
okay.
Season 1 with Jess. And in one of the episodes, they have the real concubines of Kubla Khan.
Oh, yeah, one of the Housewives of Beverly Hills is in it. Her husband actually did the score for The Lion King.
It's hilarious.
Okay, I have to check it out. I love her. Crystal Kung Minkoff.
I'm pretty sure it's the last episode they had it. It's either the seventh or the eighth episode they had it in. It all bled together. We watched 6 episodes in a row. So,
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna have to check it out. I love
but
her.
that was probably one of the funniest skits that they had that
Very
they did
cool.
with it. That was up there with Curb Your Judaism. Yeah,
That's funny. That's funny.
there was a lot of fart jokes and stuff like that, and lowbrow humor in it too. But like, there's definitely some that really got me. That
Hmm.
definitely was one of them. And I knew you would appreciate that particular one. So you should all check out History of the World Part 2 to check out the real concubines of Kubla Khan.
Definitely.
Oh my God. But for those who haven't tuned into Welcome to the Wasteland before, this is my show where I take a dive into a particular director and week by week take on another film. And we're really moving along with John Carpenter, which will wrap up in May. So only have a couple more months of his work. And we're talking about Christine, which is based off of the Stephen King novel. And for those who haven't checked out the show before, we have coming attractions, our feature film, and then some recommendations to send you home with. Now, this probably was one of the easiest picks for both of us for what films are most anticipated this weekend of March 10th. But
Hmm.
specifically, we have Woody Harrelson in a Fairly Brother comedy Champions, Adam Driver fighting dinosaurs in 65, but both of them pale in comparison to Ghostface. And
Yeah.
Diana, why are you excited about Scream 6?
Well, I think this is going to be the scariest ghost face we've ever come across. I feel like in the past, he was always in on the joke. And, I think Scream is definitely still going to be in on the joke. However, I think this ghost face is going to be a little bit spicier than the last ones. I love that it takes place in New York because I grew up in New York. So a lot of these settings, a bodega, a subway, like this is me. So I think that might add to another little element of fear. And then, of course, Courtney Cox, which, by the way, I have to share. I got the greatest compliment of my life. My friend's son, they were watching Scream 2, and he said, Daddy, does Diana have a sister? And he said, No, I don't think so. And he thought Courtney Cox was my sister. So
Well, there you go.
huge compliment. I'm like any other compliment anyone gives me will pale in comparison. I'm sorry.
Well, there you go. Diana got the greatest compliment of her life
Yes.
thanks to Scream and Courtney Cox. So there you
Yes.
go.
My
Um,
sister.
I'm very excited for this. I did actually see this already earlier this week, like a lot of I talk about these coming attractions, but I was so excited for this when I found out that they switched this to New York. I'm like, this is fresh, this is cool, this is exciting. And I really fell in love with the characters that they added in the legacy
Yes.
sequel Scream. And I'm like, I'm not even that mad that like, you know, Nev Campbell's not in it, and of course Rip Dewey.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but like obviously
That's so
Courtney Cox,
sad.
that Oh my God, that got me so bad.
I
Here's
could not cry because I had just gotten my eyelashes done and it wasn't 24 hours, so the glue didn't dry. And I was like holding my eyes like this so I didn't cry.
oh my God. So about 2 years before that movie came out, I watched You Can't Kill David Arquette and got this whole new appreciation for him because of that documentary. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm rooting for this guy. And then came back for Scream, and I'm just like, oh no, oh no. And of course it happens.
Yeah.
And like Gail's back. We have Courtney Cox back, and I haven't seen 3 or 4 yet. So I don't have the connection to Panettiere. So like I don't know Kirby from like the other film, but like I really loved Melissa Barrera, Jen Ortega, was it Mason Gooding,
Hmm.
and keep forgetting her first name, but it's
I know who you're
Boy
talking about. I don't.
Brown,
Yeah.
Mindy. She's
Yeah.
100% my favorite character. I love her. And I was excited to see them back. And
Yeah.
I was expecting something cool and fresh and shaking things up. And I'm not going to say anything because Diana's going to see it and you all are going to
But it
see it.
delivered. It delivered. Okay, good.
I just wrote a Wasteland watch list for Scribe about why you should go check out this movie. So
Amazing.
there
Also,
you
you
go.
should watch Scream 4. There are a lot of callbacks to the original I think you would appreciate.
Well, both of them are on my watch list to act like I want to watch both of them
Yeah.
because unlike a lot of these other slasher franchises,
Hmm.
Scream seems to like keep it going and
Hmm.
not just like drudge through a bunch of crap. So
Yeah.
like it's exciting to see 6 movies in, still going strong.
Cool.
Um, because to quote our main focus of this episode, John Carpenter, I didn't really believe that they should have made any more Halloween films, but I'm not going to complain about my royalty checks.
God bless.
So, John Carpenter, tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Nice segue into talking about his film, Christine, which, like I mentioned before, this is based off of a Stephen King novel. Dinah, have you read Christine?
No.
I just read it last year on a giant Stephen King kick that I went on. And
Yeah.
like so many other Stephen King adaptations, it's not exactly a pure adaptation of it because it goes in a different direction in terms of like what Christine is. Because
Oh,
in the book, it's a haunted car with like
right.
a woman's spirit in it and everything. And John Carpenter's like, nope, we're just gonna trim that. We're gonna trim that back, and this is just evil sentient car that falls in love with people and then mass murders people. So there you go.
I
Um,
like the idea of a ghost better.
it's an interesting thing to think about because like it adds like here's the thing. I feel like that makes more sense for a Stephen King novel because
Hmm.
Stephen King is known for adding like those layers of complex emotions and heart into his stories. I feel like that makes less sense for a John Carpenter movie
Yeah.
because I feel like he prefers to live somewhere in the ambiguity of
Uh-huh.
things. Because, like, do we know why Michael Myers keeps living in the first Halloween? No, he's just
No.
pure evil. So, and it works that way.
Hmm.
Obviously, all of these Halloween sequels have gone so deep into a whole bunch of nonsense on like
Yeah.
why Michael Myers the way that he is. But if you just look at Halloween, if you just look at this film, Christine, it's just an evil car.
Hmm.
And it makes connections with people, and then it's very jealous and vindictive. And it's just like,
Yeah.
get away from my man, and then I try to have you choke to death. Or do some other horrible things to people.
Yep.
But before I get ahead of myself, obviously this is directed by John Carpenter and the script's from Bill Phillips. This is from 1983, starring Keith Gordon, John Stockwell. This is one of the Carpenter films from this era that don't really have any like big name people in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
I don't think I knew who anyone was.
there's no Kurt Russell, first of all. There's no Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right.
So it's kind of like taking this some unknowns, and like I think Robert Prosky, who's like the guy who runs the garage, is like the
Hmm.
only actor that I really recognized in this.
Yeah.
But Diana, what were your main thoughts after
Um,
watching it?
so overall I liked the movie. However, I mean, and this is just the time it was made, I really had a problem with the way they talked about women and the way they treated women and the portrayal of women. Like we're filming this during Women's History Month, and like I just got a little fired up about that. Like that just really bothered me. But other than that, I thought it was a cool movie. I like what they did with the car. I loved all the effects. I'm like a practical effect person, so I
Mhm.
thought that was really cool. Love John Carpenter music. We had like a solid score from him in there.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, again, overall, I really liked it. I do wish they did some things differently, but it was a product of its time. What can you do?
Which is funny because last night I was on a panel to discuss a documentary about the misrepresentation and underrepresentation of women in film.
Oh yeah.
So like sitting here, it's like it is one of those kinds of things. So like this is a weird mix because this is from 1983,
Hmm.
takes place in like the 70s,
Yeah.
but has all these very 50s vibes to it. Because
Hmm.
like the car is a very 50s car. Long before Transformers ripped off this trick, the car speaks in songs. So we get
Yeah.
we get a kind of look into the soul of Christine through the songs that Christine plays. And even if you think about the portrayal of Christine, which is meant to be like portrayed like a woman, she's very vindictive and
Hmm.
jealous. And it's just like, well, that's honestly her whole personality and obsessive. So it's
She's a
like,
cougar.
yeah, it's basically like Arnie's mine. And
Yeah.
then anybody who goes near Arnie's gonna die.
Hmm.
So you have that kind of dynamic. And even was it Alexandra Paul's Lee's kind of just look, she's pretty.
I was
And
so annoyed.
but she reads in the library. So she must be smart. Uh, so, which to be honest, I think that really is just the extent of her characterization in this
She
movie.
had no personality, none.
Yep.
I was like, "This, come on, this is the only woman in the film," and half the time we're like treating her like a piece of meat, and then when we get to know her, we know less than we did before we got to know her.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to see like if I recognize anything else that this writer wrote because
Hmm.
there's a lot more in the book to these characters.
I'm
Um
sure.
which this is even long for a John Carpenter film because
Yeah,
most of his films are like 90 minutes, 95 minutes. This is 110 minutes long. It's an hour and 50-minute film.
yeah,
And I feel like they still don't spend a whole lot of time on like even the two main characters like Arnie and Dennis. Like, yeah, we get it, they're friends. Um Arnie originally is portrayed as the most obnoxious nerd geek parody in a
yeah,
movie. He's like running around like this with like his big black glasses
yeah.
and like, tripping through puddles to say goodbye to his mom. And then, of course, Arnie gets cool, starts wearing leather jackets and
Hmm.
not caring about his friends anymore. And it's like that kind of thing where it's just like, the look, he's a nice guy. He just doesn't know how to talk to anybody, and he's a nerd and antisocial, and then he turns into a complete dick. Uh,
Yeah.
and
No in
then
between.
no, yeah, no in between. And then John Stockwell's Dennis is like he's like the popular one. He's on the football team. He's a big
Hmm.
wide receiver until Christine breaks his body. It's just like, oh crap. So it's that kind of thing where it's like I love so many of Carpenter's films because so many characters are so much fun.
Yeah.
And like this movie really doesn't have that. It's
No,
like none of the characters are particularly interesting.
no.
And in comparison, there's like two what if you don't count Christine, there's like two women who get named in this movie basically,
Yeah.
and one is Arnie's mom,
Yeah.
who is completely portrayed as just a complete and utter, just like overbearing witch of a mom,
Yeah.
and just like that. And then we already talked about Lee, who really doesn't have much to her at all. But the real star of this movie is Christine and the
Hmm.
horrible things that Christine does to people.
Oh my God.
So, what were some of the things that really stuck out to you, Diana, for like a horror perspective?
That ending shot where like Arnie like just pulls the glass out of him. I literally like my signature whenever something bad happens in
Mhm.
horror movies or someone dies, I either yell like rip, which I did. Um,
Yep.
or when I first see like I guess my response is like, oh, that's bad. And like so we got a combo of those. And but that effect, like him just yanking the glass out, I was like, that was pretty good.
Yep. And like, if you think about like the final shot of the film, where it's like they completely demolish Christine, but
Yeah, little box.
something's moving a little bit.
Yup.
You're just like, because here's the thing, and one of the most impressive things that John Carpenter does as a director in collaborations with cinematographers is the creeping, stalking camera.
Mm-hmm.
And like going back to like, and this is the cool thing about doing this series, like going back to like he had a student film called Captain Voyeur, which
Mm-hmm.
basically the whole entire thing's about a guy creeping on people.
That sounds like it.
And then bad thing happens to him at the end. Spoiler alert, 7 minutes in, it's like, well, people are sick of him creeping on him, they shoot him. So like, but the thing is, it's like Carpenter's always had those like really creeping camera movements where it feels like you are the camera walking by, and like
Mm-hmm.
that zoom at the end is just like creeping in. And the way that John Carpenter uses that in this film is so important because your monster, your antagonist is an inanimate object. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
figure out ways to build that tension because like you can't just have like somebody like creeping behind somebody or somebody making a scary face. It's a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's moments where it's like that camera's creeping in on Christine, and you're just like, what's the car gonna do? I don't know what the car is gonna do. And you just kind of like feel that tension building. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's some of the technical end of this that really makes this work. And just the way that the film's creeping about. And then of course, you have those shots where it's like you have the guys that at one point destroy Christine, and then Christine's miraculously okay,
Mm-hmm.
but those guys aren't. It's like Christine's off in the distance, and you're just like, oh, I thought we destroyed that car. Car's
No.
creeping at you. And I know you mentioned like the special effects, and what was the fun fact that you pulled up on how many cars they destroyed in this?
Yeah, so they used it's around 26 that they actually used in the film, and they destroyed anywhere I think it was between 10 to 13 of them.
So
Or
they were
13 to 18. Definitely 13 was in there. So like at least half they destroyed.
and one of the scenes where they really destroyed it was when it creeped on that first victim from that
Hmm.
group he's like, oh, I got away in this little alcove. He's like, come on. Well,
Yeah.
not stopping Christine. Christine barrels through, crushing itself into that alcove and just crushes the guy.
Yeah.
Also, what a horrible high school this is.
I know.
Like
I felt that too.
sideburns guy with his butterfly knife just rolling
Yeah.
around doing horrible things at this
Bootleg
place.
John Travolta.
Yes. They couldn't afford John Travolta. I guess it wasn't after Staying Alive yet. So
Yeah,
like John Travolta still could actually make money at this point. So
that's funny.
if they waited like 3 more years, I think John Travolta would have done this movie.
It's so funny because I saw a record. He did apparently a record and it was in Amoeba like recently. And I was like, oh my God. And he looked just like that guy, like the sideburns and the hair. And I'm like, Damn, they really went for the bootleg John Travolta.
Yeah, and oh, uh I completely forgot. So there was at least one alum from Escape from New York in this one, which
Okay.
character actor Harry Dean Stanton popped up as like the investigator guy who like
Hmm.
does nothing.
Yeah.
Just kind of there. It's like, hey, look, it's Harry Dean Stanton. People will recognize him. Which honestly they might have been thinking about the point where it's
Yeah.
just like, gotta have somebody we could throw out there. Because like I don't know what either of these two, so like see, like I didn't even recognize like John Stockwell was in Top Gun.
Hmm.
He's not
I
Tom
know. I
Cruise,
didn't
he's not
recognize
Goose, and he's
anyone.
not Val Kilmer, so I don't care. Apparently he was also in Blue Crush,
I didn't see that. I remember that, but I didn't see it.
which is like 20 years later. So obviously
I
he was like
know.
probably a
That's
dad.
crazy to think of.
And then to be fair, the I think the actor who played Arnie was, I guess, like the main son in Back to School.
I haven't seen that yet, but I think Oingo Boingo's in it. So people told me to watch it.
Well, now you got to watch it.
I know. I'm pretty sure that's the one they told me.
Which it does look like Keith Gordon is still working. Like he was in Fargo,
Oh, good for
um,
him.
Homeland, Legion, Better Call Saul. So like he's popping up in a lot of things, probably in like one-off episodes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I like Christine. It definitely is a stripped down version of the story based off of the book. There's a lot more in the book. This is much more of like, we don't need an explanation. Car's evil.
Yeah.
We know it from the beginning. Murdered people on the assembly line.
Hmm.
Dude just gets that was a great opening
It was.
when like you see Christine for the first time and that guy just dies.
Hmm.
Um right there, and you're just like, oh, well, there we go. Murderous car, all ready to go. Which also, I was sitting watching this movie and I'm like, is there a Carpenter score in this movie? Because it feels like it doesn't kick in until like halfway through the movie.
No, it was like a slow burn with the score.
And then it has some really good moments in some of the bigger like set pieces. Like the final set piece is just like a demolition derby at that point,
Hmm.
and which is a lot of fun, and I enjoyed that. But I feel like a lot of they've really leaned into like the 50s music, the rockabilly, the rock and roll stuff that's like
Yeah.
more the personality of the film. But I feel like this is I'm imagining once I get towards the end of all these John Carpenter films, this is probably going to be somewhere middle of the road of his films for me, because I haven't seen any of like the mid to late 90s, early 2000s schlock that he did.
Hmm.
So that kind of stuff, we'll see how that goes. I'm not looking forward to movies, but at least this is like it's a quality, lean kind of horror film, and it's just kind of lacking some of the other trademarks that I enjoy about his films, which
Yeah.
are like quirky and weird, fun characters. Like this has nothing on, and also there's like no really memorable dialogue either.
No.
Like I don't think I could quote like a single thing in this movie, to be honest.
No. And I wasn't rooting for anyone. Like I just was not rooting for anyone. Maybe I was rooting for the car to destroy everyone. Like I just did not care about anyone.
We were rooting for Christine.
Yeah, honestly.
But Diana, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to add about Christine?
No. Solid movie. Is it one of my favorites? No, but it was enjoyable.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Just don't want to mess with Christine.
No.
But that leaves us with some recommendations for all of you and keeping that horror game going. So, Diana, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
I would like to recommend Smile. I honestly thought I was never going to watch that movie just because I had no interest in it, but
Hmm.
I'm glad I did. Really good horror like aspects to it. It was jump scare central. So
Mhm.
I definitely got some airtime during that movie with all the jumping I was doing. Great acting. There was a little bit of just a tiny bit of humor, like strategically sprinkled in.
Yeah,
But yeah, I enjoyed it.
and some creepy smiles.
Oh my God. Yeah. The person I watched it with texted me last night, and it was like the gif of the the girl smiling in the beginning, Laura, and it was just like sleep tight. And I'm like, well, holy jump
Well, I'm
scare.
not now.
Yep.
Thanks. I it got me. Even the big scare from the trailer with the head. Like watching the
Yeah.
movie, I'm just like, I know it's coming. Still don't like it.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, just it had a very good way of making you question what was real. Because there were so many times in that movie you thought it was going one way, and it's like, no, 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 no. And it really puts you in her shoes because
Absolutely.
you both don't know what's real.
And like we were talking before we started recording, like the ending kind of undercuts some of the deeper meaning
Agreed.
of the film,
Yeah.
but it's still scary as hell. So, and it's on Peacock. So, honestly, Peacock has some solid stuff out right now.
Yeah, Megan.
Yeah, they have Megan, they have Smile, and I know I mentioned before they're also going to have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which in a just world would win Best Animated Feature at the awards this year,
Yeah.
but has no chance because of Pinocchio and Marcel the Shell with shoes on. But Peacock has its merits, and it's not just
Yeah.
WWE Network.
The Real Housewives of Miami.
There you go. See, we both have our own things, right?
Yes.
So I watch my wrestling, and you watch your Real Housewives. So there you go.
Yep.
Which, for the record, still to this day, the only time I've ever watched Real Housewives was with you.
Oh man, it's so funny. Everyone who I show, they do kind of get into it. It's interesting. You know what I mean? Even if you're not going to watch the whole series, they know how to pull you in for an episode or two.
Hey, I will never forget you prostitution whore.
Engaged? Not times.
Because that's what we watched.
Yeah, because
Like,
it was
oh my
season one,
god.
and I had that on DVD.
Yep. Because I was freshman year of college.
Yeah.
We watched Real Housewives and The Hangover. That was a fun
hmm
time. So
So
there you
many
go.
divorces now. Someone went to jail. Like it's a whole thing.
Whole entire thing.
hmm
Now I'm going to shamelessly plug one of the podcasts that Diana and I did that's been posted for Scribe, which is their Wasteland Rewind for Jennifer's Body, because that's one of my
Yes.
recommendations, which I had never seen it before. It had bad word of mouth originally. Word of mouth has shifted over time, and it's a fun time, and you should watch it. And it has some really great talent behind it, and you should not look at the trailers. Just watch the
No,
movie.
don't look at the posters. Don't look at any of the marketing. They did it wrong. I would say if you want to get any previews of the movie, and I've never watched any of these, but like I bet you should watch some fan edits on YouTube because I feel like they would probably capture the true spirit of the movie.
There you go. Now,
hmm
that was one of my watch list films that I watched that I wanted to recommend. One of my rewatches from my lovely collection here was Akira, which honestly is one of the best anime you're going to find out there. And this is crazy action sci-fi dystopian film about biker gangs and people getting insane psychic powers because of mutations and all kinds of stuff like that. It's a crazy
Yeah.
time. To the point where Jordan Peele's actually a humongous fan of it, and he has a nice, wonderful Easter egg to it in Nope.
Huh.
Yep. That has to do with a motorcycle.
Okay.
So just putting that out there. And then the one new film out that I wanted to recommend is Creed 3, which Michael B. Jordan, first time directing, does a damn good job.
Very cool.
And it's a much more intimate and darker Creed movie. It's probably one of the darker films in the Rocky franchise from
hmm
like a thematic idea, and even from like it gets really personal between obviously Adonis Creed, and then Damien, who is Jonathan Major's character, which also the two of them being in the same boxing ring together without shirts on is intense.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. Which also, the two of them are fantastic actors, and it's really awesome to see them together in this. And also, little shout out to the girl that played his daughter in this movie, because she's the most adorable thing I think I've seen in a movie in a long time. So their
Children
dynamic
in
is,
movies are winning for 2023. We have the girl in Megan, the girl at Knock at the Cabin, and now this kid.
oh, what's your favorite movie? Kiki's Delivery Service. Melt. Done.
Yeah.
That got me. Just,
So cute.
it was so cute, despite the fact that you had that giant Dave Batista
I know.
Dutch ankle, like zoomed in shot of his
I
face.
know.
He's like, this is terrifying. Oh, but she's so cute.
She's adorable.
I feel like that's Knock at the Cabin, the first scene in a nutshell. She's like, this is unnerving. Oh, she's adorable. Oh my god, this is uncomfortable. She's
Yeah.
so cute.
Hmm.
Also, if you haven't seen that, you should go show some
Great
M.
movie.
Shyamalan some love.
Filmed in New Jersey, I found out.
Yes.
Filmed in South Jersey.
Yes, out in the Pine Barrens in the middle of freaking nowhere. Uh,
Yeah.
it looked familiar. I'm
It
like,
did. There was the one point when there was a diner. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've seen this road before. And sure enough.
yep. I'm like, well, that's deep South Jersey right there.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. M. Night Shyamalan, everything he makes is very Philly
Hmm.
based. And where do Philly people go? To the shore,
Yep.
Jersey.
And
So
you
there
gotta
you
go
go.
through the Pine Barrens to get there.
Hmm. I was just waiting for the Always Sunny guys to pop up, lost in the Pine Barrens.
Oh my God. That would have been a whole different movie. And then they just show up in the outfits like the people in the movie with the weapons. And
Can
someone
you?
needs to
Oh
make,
my!
okay, fan art. Someone needs to make the Always Sunny people like with the weapons, like the poster for the movie. And then you're going to give me 10% because I thought of it. Okay. I have no artistic ability.
This is ridiculous, and this is going to continue this episode for a minute or two. But we
Yeah.
need to cast them. So who's Batista? I
I want to say ironically, Danny DeVito.
It has to be right. So Frank is the leader of this group.
Yeah.
I feel like Dennis has to be Rupert Grint because
Yeah.
Dennis is such a piece of shit, and Rupert Grint's character was too.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like Charlie Day's like the young white girl who just like, yep. And then
Adrian.
I guess that just leaves Mac to be the nurse,
Yeah.
and Dee's just waiting outside, wanting to be involved, and they won't let her into the house.
Just standing watch for absolutely no one.
Yep. Well, there we go. We just combined It's Always Sunny and Knock at the Cabin, and that was free. All of you get to enjoy that as an add-on
It's
to the end
always
of this
sunny at the
episode.
cabin.
There it is. Boom. They need to do that parody like right now. Their next
Yeah.
season has to have that in there
My check will be in the mail.
because 100% either Glenn Howerton, Rob McElhenney, Charlie Day, or Danny DeVito are watching this episode right now.
So,
They're
oh,
like,
they watch all the time. They told me last week.
out of all of them, who would you be most likely to know? I feel like Frank would be the kind of
Yeah.
person that just like I just randomly know him from
Yeah.
nowhere.
Well,
But
that's
there you
like
go.
the spirit of Philly. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, because every city has their thing, but like Philly is just like, oh yeah, that's Philly. There was a
Oh,
guy
there's a
actually
lot
here
of
in
things that are like,
LA.
oh, that's Philly.
There was a
Like,
guy one time. I was on the corner of Highland and Sunset, which is a pretty busy intersection. And there was a guy on a bike just like riding around with the Viking hat, flipping everyone the bird. And I was like, he must be from Philly.
no. I have a lot of family from Philly. They're South Philly Italians, so
Yeah.
there you go. They're a fun group. Those
Hmm.
damn Phillies disappointing everybody. But Diana, thank you so much for coming on and humoring me with that fun part towards the end.
Yes, of course. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.